The battlefield. Beyond borders, a new kind of war. What if wars were fought not in the streets of a country but on its soil, by outsiders with their own agendas? This is the new reality of modern warfare, proxy wars. Instead of armies facing off directly, countries send support, weapons, and sometimes fighters to another nation's conflict. This makes the battlefields murkier, harder to control, and more devastating. The concept of proxy wars is far from new, but their reach has grown, and the stakes have never been higher. With global superpowers involved, conflicts no longer just affect the countries at war, they ripple across the world. Buckle up because it's about to get intense. The proxy wars, who's pulling the strings? In proxy wars, the real power is in the hands of those who don't fight. Instead, they send money, weapons, and military advisors to support their side. These conflicts aren't about one country trying to conquer another. It's about control, of resources, of influence, and of global order. Think of it like a high-stakes chess game where the pawns are actual people, and the chessboard stretches from the Middle East to Africa. The Soviet Union, the United States, and other major powers have been playing this game for decades, pulling strings behind the scenes. The consequences? Countries caught in the middle suffer the most. The Cold War's legacy, proxy fighting. In the 20th century, the Cold War didn't just bring nuclear threats and arms races, it was the birthplace of modern proxy wars. With the US and the Soviet Union locked in a global standoff, neither wanted direct confrontation. So, they used smaller nations as battlegrounds, like pawns in a deadly game. From the jungles of Southeast Asia to the deserts of Africa, countries like Vietnam, Angola, and Afghanistan became arenas where superpowers flexed their muscles without going to full-scale war. The Cold War may have ended, but the scars from these proxy wars still haunt us today. The lesson? Proxy wars aren't just a thing of the past. They're still with us. The Vietnam War. When superpowers collide. In the 1960s, the world watched as two superpowers clashed in Vietnam, though neither was directly attacking each other. The US backed South Vietnam, while the Soviet Union and China supported North Vietnam. What followed was a brutal conflict where civilians paid the price, but the true goal was influence in the heart of Southeast Asia. The Vietnam War's end didn't bring peace. Instead, it sparked a wave of US involvement in similar conflicts. The US left Vietnam, but the consequences lingered. Today, we see similar dynamics playing out in countries where superpowers choose sides, not by direct war, but through proxy forces. Afghanistan, the Soviet Union's bloody gamble. Afghanistan was the Soviet Union's Vietnam. In 1979, the Soviet Union sent troops to prop up a communist government, fearing a loss of influence in Central Asia. What followed was a brutal, decade-long war, as Afghan guerrilla fighters, funded by the US, Pakistan, and others, waged an insurgency. The Soviets were bogged down, and the costs, both in lives and resources, were immense. The war ended in failure for the Soviets, and Afghanistan became a symbol of how proxy wars could backfire. The US saw its own rise to superpower status by backing these insurgents, laying the groundwork for a future conflict. The Middle East, the hotbed of proxy conflicts. If there's one region where proxy wars are alive and well, it's the Middle East. From the Iranian Revolution in 1979 to the ongoing chaos in Syria, the Middle East has been ground zero for battles fought not just between countries, but through militias, terror groups, and outside forces. Iran, Saudi Arabia, the US, Russia, and others have all been involved in backing factions that suit their interests, often leading to devastating, endless conflicts. Syria's civil war, for instance, is a battle for influence between US-backed forces and Russian-backed ones, with millions of lives lost in the process. In the Middle East, proxy wars aren't just history, they're the present. The 21st century shift. New players, new battlefields, the world has changed. No longer are proxy wars confined to the Cold War-era players. As the 21st century unfolds, new powers like China, Turkey, and regional players are making their mark on the battlefield. In countries like Yemen and Libya, we see a shifting balance of power, where proxy fighters from all over the world intervene to secure their interests. This new landscape is increasingly complex, with new alliances and rivalries constantly reshaping the field. As more countries join the game, proxy wars are becoming less predictable and more dangerous, potentially igniting conflicts on a global scale. Syria, the epicenter of global power struggles. Syria has become the ultimate proxy war battleground of the modern era. Since 2011, a civil war has devastated the country, but the real fight is over control and influence. The US, Russia, Iran, Turkey, and various rebel groups all have their fingers in the pie, each pursuing their own goals. Russia wants a foothold in the Middle East. The US wants to limit Iran's influence, and everyone else is looking to either protect or expand their interests. Meanwhile, civilians continue to bear the brunt of the conflict. Syria is no longer just a civil war, it's a microcosm of the global struggle for power. Yemen, the secret war you never hear about. The war in Yemen is a classic proxy conflict, but it's one that doesn't get as much attention as others. Since 2015, Saudi Arabia and its allies have been fighting against Houthi rebels, who are supported by Iran. This war has led to one of the worst humanitarian crises in modern history, with millions of people displaced and thousands killed. For Saudi Arabia, this is a fight for dominance in the region, while for Iran, it's a chance to weaken its rival. The war in Yemen is a reminder that proxy conflicts can hide in plain sight, often with devastating consequences for the people caught in the middle. Ukraine, a clash of titans in Eastern Europe. Ukraine is the latest hotspot for proxy fighting, with the 2014 Russian annexation of Crimea and the ongoing war in eastern Ukraine, highlighting the fierce battle for influence between Russia and the West. While Russia has directly intervened, many believe the US and NATO's involvement in supporting Ukraine has escalated the situation. The conflict has sparked a new Cold War-style standoff, with both sides engaging in economic warfare, cyber attacks, and proxy fighting. Ukraine's sovereignty is being fought over, but the global order and balance of power in Europe are at stake too. This conflict could set the stage for the next great global confrontation. Africa, the new battleground for global influence. Africa, with its vast resources and strategic location, is becoming a hotbed for proxy wars. Countries like the US, Russia, and China have been increasingly involved in African conflicts, supporting governments, rebels, or militias to secure their interests. From the civil wars in Sudan and South Sudan to the ongoing conflict in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Africa's instability is being exploited by outside powers. This has led to a cycle of violence that's hard to break. Africa is no longer just a passive player. It's a key battlefield in the global fight for dominance. The future of proxy wars. Will they ever end? As we look to the future, it's clear that proxy wars aren't going anywhere. With the rise of new superpowers, the spread of technology, and the ease of accessing weapons, proxy wars are becoming even more complicated. These conflicts are less visible but more widespread, and they have the potential to pull in countries from across the globe. As the world continues to fracture into competing blocs, it's likely that proxy wars will become the go-to strategy for countries looking to exert power without risking full-scale war. The real question is, how far are we willing to let these wars go before they spiral out of control?